It's TK Friday, and today in the joy of editing, mastering Photoshop actions with TK9 button clicks, part 2. Hello everyone, and welcome to the joy of editing with Dave Kelly. It is TK Friday, my favorite day of the week, and you ask for it. I'm going to show you how to make some more Photoshop actions using TK9 button clicks, 5 as a matter of fact. And hopefully by the end of this video, you'll be an expert at making Photoshop actions using TK9 button clicks. And I also have some PDF notes for you giving you step-by-step instructions on how to make these actions. So don't forget to download those PDF notes. You'll find a Dropbox link in the description below this video. Open up that description, scroll down through, and click on that Dropbox link. Make these actions. That'll get your feet wet into making Photoshop actions with TK9 button clicks, and then experiment and make your own actions. And if you come up with some really cool actions, let us know about it in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave comments. I really want to hear from you. By the way, if you don't yet own the TK9 plugin for Photoshop version 3, I have a link in the description below this video where you can pick it up. Use my promo code DK15. You'll save 15% off your entire purchase at the TK web store. And there's tons of stuff over here. There's training videos, the TK9 button by button guide, a free Getting Started with TK9, new Luminosity courses by Sean Bagshaw. And again, you'll save 15% off your entire purchase. And there's the TK Magic Mixer plugin. It's great for making black and white conversions and also adjusting images in color. It's really cool. So check it out. It's only $10. And don't forget, use my promo code DK15. Save 15% off your entire purchase. When you do that, I make a small commission. You're supporting the joy of editing with Dave Kelly. And for that, I am truly thankful. All right then, let's make some actions. By the way, this image comes to us from Peter Ellum. I did a full edit on this image on a past TK Friday. I believe in color as well as black and white, so you can look through my YouTube videos and find that edit. But I thought today I would use it just so we can run some actions so I can show you how these work. Now, I brought this image right out of Lightroom and just ran sky and foreground balance and contrast on it. It started out looking like this. There's a linear profile on it, and now it looks like this. But now we're going to make 5 different actions. The first action I want to make is an action to add color to highlights. Maybe say in the sky or the foreground, or maybe you just want to paint in the highlights in any area of the image that you want. So let's go ahead and make this one. If you didn't watch last TK Friday, that was part 1 of mastering Photoshop actions with TK9 button clicks. Watch that because it has a lot of important information in it. I'm not going to go over that again, but go back and watch that if you haven't. The first thing you want to do is open up your Photoshop actions. So look for this little play symbol and give that a click. I'm going to go ahead and drag this out just to undock it, because I don't want it hiding my TK9 CX panel with all my TK actions, because I'll be needing it for one of the actions we make. Now, here's something very important. Whenever you want to make a Photoshop action, you cannot be in button mode. And if we come up to this flyout menu and click, see right here where it says button mode, click on that. And this is button mode. And this is the mode I like to be in when I'm running my Photoshop actions that I've made from button clicks. And the nice thing about button mode, it's just one click to run the action. Plus you could color code your actions, which is really nice. Now, one thing I must tell you, whenever you make Photoshop actions using TK9 button clicks, you cannot run them from the My Actions panel. This is a Photoshop issue. It's not a TK9 issue, and hopefully Adobe will fix that issue soon in Photoshop. But to create an action, what we need to do is we can't be in button mode, so click the flyout menu, and if you're in button mode, click button mode to uncheck it, and now we can make our action because we have all these controls down here, and we use these when we're making an action. In your Photoshop actions, whenever you see a folder, that is an action set. In other words, if I click this arrow, I can open this up, and there's a bunch of actions in here. These are David Tillett's blend if actions. I'm going to go ahead and click this to close that folder. I have some actions in here. I'm going to close that. TK9 actions here. I'm going to close that. I made a folder for today called TK Friday Actions Part 2. Now watch Part 1, I show you how to make an action folder, but I'll be putting the actions I make today inside of this folder. So I'm going to click on this folder. There's nothing in it right now. It's highlighted. And now what I need to do is click this button right here to start to create a new action. So let's click it. And this dialog box comes up, new action. We got to give it a name. So I'll type in add color to highlights. And you see right here where it says set TK Friday action part 2. That's because I have this highlighted right here. So that comes up. But this is a drop down. You can click this. And these are all your different action sets. You can put them in any one of these sets you want. If you watched last week's video, we made the TK9 button click action. So you could just put yours right in there and you'll be building upon the actions that we've made from last week. But on this video, I'm just going to put them in here. And then we have color. We can give it a color. None, I believe, is black if you don't put a color in here. And then this is a drop down, and this is for button mode. You could put in any color you want. I'm just going to click on orange, but choose any color you like. And then click record, and you'll notice the circle here turns red, meaning we are in record mode. That's exciting. Now, I just paused the video because I noticed I did not have my closed TK panels action inside of this action set. Now, if you watched last week's video, you made closed TK panels, and it will be the first action inside of your action set because we need to incorporate this closed TK panels into our add color to highlights action because we're going to be using this TK multi-mask panel. And all that first action does is make sure that you don't get any kind of user interface errors whenever you're using, like, say, the multi-mask panel. So that's important. And again, if you watched last week's video and you made the actions, it will already be in your actions folder where you're going to be adding these 5 new actions to. Now, I had to click stop to stop the recording to bring in the closed TK panels into this action set. You're not going to have to do that. So I'm going to click record to engage record again. Now, the first step is to click on close TK panels, and we are recording, and now click play. And now we see our first step of this action. Play action close TK panels of set TK Friday actions part 2. So that's the first step. We're still recording. Now, the next step is to apply a solid color adjustment layer. Hold your Command or Control key down and click on the solid color adjustment layer button, and you'll get a color picker. Now, the reason for the Command or Control when clicking on this, it assures that if you were on any other layer but the top of the layer stack, it will always put it to the top of the layer stack, which is kind of important. And now we need to choose a color that we want to add to our highlights. Now, it could be any color you want. I'm just going to sample one of these colors in the image right here. We're going to alter this later. You can add any color you want, so this is not a big deal. Just choose a color, but I would recommend a color you would typically use to color highlights. And warm tones are generally a good choice. And then click OK. Now, I know the image right now doesn't look good, but don't worry about that. Our next step is to click on the Edit Blend If button on the multi-mask panel. And what we want to do, remember, we want to color highlights. So let's click on Lights 1. And now it looks a lot better, right? Now that's recorded into the action. And now let's rename this layer. Let's double click on Color Fill 1. And I'm going to type in Add Color to Highlights. And then type your Enter or Return key. Now we're still recording. And what we want to do now is double click on this solid color icon. The color picker comes up and just click OK. That step was very important because it's going to let us pick any color we want. But now we're done recording the action, so we can click the stop button. And now if we look over here at the last step of the action where we opened up the color picker, we need to click right here in this box. What this does is it enables a user interaction. In other words, it's going to let us pick that color. So that's important. And now what we want to do is test out the action. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this layer. It's highlighted. I'll click on the trash can. Now let's come back over to our action. What we need to do is click on the action name, Add Color to Highlights. And what I want to do is select the background layer to make sure this add color goes to the top of the layer stack. So now let me click on play and see what happens. And it does. It goes to the top of the layer stack, and that user interaction enabled color picker to open up. So now we can choose any color we want. You know, we can come in here and choose any color you want, and you can see it in real time on the image. So this is really cool. But let's say I want like a warmer tone, and then what if I want it a little bit darker? I can click here. You see that, and then click OK. But that's the way that action works. And then if you wanted to, you could put a black mask on here and just paint this on wherever you want it. Or if you only want it in the foreground, we could subtract the sky. But that's one of the actions I'm going to make. I'm going to make a one-click action to subtract sky, a one-click action to subtract foreground. So that's coming up, so stay tuned. But now we've made our add color to highlights action. And at any time, you can just double-click on the solid color icon and then change this to any color that you would like. So that's really cool. So I'll click OK. But also notice the Edit Blend If panel is open. So what we can do here is, right now we're in lights 1. Let's see what it looks like on lights 2. We can narrow that down. We could check it out on lights 3. So we have all this adjustment we could do after the action runs. So I really like that. If we click on this downward arrow, we can collapse that action. And now let's make another action. This one will be to add color to shadows, something that I think you would use a lot in your Photoshop workflow. So let's go ahead and click the plus button again, and the new action dialog box opens up. Now for name, I went ahead and typed in add color to shadows, and for color, let's click on the drop down. I'll click on indigo because a lot of times I do like to add a little bit of blue to my shadows. And now we'll click record, and you can see here's my new action, add color to shadows. We're in record mode. Now I'll be using my multi-mask panel, but right now my Edit Blend If panel is open. I don't want to record this in the action. I want to close this panel, but what we're going to do is click stop. I'll click the X on the Edit Blend If panel just to close it so I can get back to my multi-mask panel. And now we can start the action recording again, so click the record button and it turns red, you know you're recording. Now we want to invoke that close TK panels action, so we'll click on it and we will click play, and you can see there it is in that first step. We'll be using another solid color adjustment layer, so hold your Command or Control key down and click on the solid color adjustment layer button. The color picker comes up, and this time I'm going to go with some blue because, again, typically I like to put a little bit of blue in shadows sometimes, and we'll just click OK. That looks horrible, right? But here's what we're going to do. We're going to click on the Edit Blend If button again, and this time we'll use Darks 2. So let's click on Darks 2. Now that looks better, but not great. But remember this, after the action runs, you could change this to any color you like or adjust Edit Blend If you'd like also. And now let's click on Color Fill 1, double click it actually, and let's type in add color to shadows and type your enter or return key. We're still recording. Double click on the solid color icon. The color picker comes up and just click OK. And now we're done recording the action, so we can click the stop button. And just like before, we need to add that user interaction to this last step. So click this box right here, and there it is. And now let's click on the name add color to shadows, and we'll test out this action. I'll click the down arrow to collapse the action. Now let's get rid of this add color to shadows layer. It's highlighted. I'll just click the trash can. We'll test this out. I'll click on layer 0 just to make sure it goes to the top of the layer stack. Add color to shadows is highlighted, so we'll go ahead and click play. We're up at the top layer, and the color picker comes up, and we could change this to any color we want. We can give it less color, maybe a little less color, maybe something like that, and we'll click OK. We could come here. Right now we're on Darks 2. What's it look like on Darks 1? What's it look like on Darks 3? Okay, let me shut this off. Here's before and here's after. Again, we could put a black mask on here and paint it in anywhere that we want, or we can just add it to the foreground. It's going into the sky. Not much shadows up there in the sky, so probably nothing to worry about there, but there it is. And of course, don't forget, you always have layer opacity. You could take this the whole way off and then just build it up slowly and maybe just add a little bit of that into the shadows. So let me shut this off. Here's before and here's after, just a subtle bit of blue in those shadows. And now let's move on to a new action. This will be a subtract sky action. I'm making this video and I'm not realizing that this action panel is way too big. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so we can see a little bit more of that image. Sorry about that. I got so caught up into making the video that I didn't even think about that. Oh well, I'm only human. Well, you know the drill by now. We're going to click on the plus. The new action dialog comes up, and just go ahead and type in subtract sky. This time I'm not even going to give it a color, and we'll click record. And now we're in record mode. If you'll recall at the start of the video, I told you I made a balance and contrast sky and foreground. I used David Tillett's action for that, and you'll notice I have a sky and foreground channel, but this action does not require a sky or a foreground channel, which is kind of nice. You could use it whenever you want. You don't have to have a sky or foreground saved in channels. So I'm going to click stop to stop the recording because I don't want to put this next step into the action. But what I want to do is click on the trash can to get rid of my alpha channels. And now we'll engage record again. What you want to do next is come to the combo or CX panel and click on the sky button. That'll select out the sky. And then click on the layer mask calculator, click on active selection, and click subtract. We still have a selection here, so click on the deselect button. That gets recorded into the action. And now click stop. We've made the action. And now if we look at this add color to shadows, there is the sky removed. So if I shut this off, here's before and here's after. There was really no color up in the sky because I was targeting shadows, so subtracting the sky wasn't really needed for this layer. But let's leave it there for now. Let me go ahead and collapse the subtract sky action by clicking the down arrow, and let's test it out. Now on this layer, add color to highlights, let's click on it. Let me shut this layer off. Here's before and here's after, but you notice it's up in the sky, which I don't like. I don't want to warm up the sky. So what we can do here is test the action out on this layer. So subtract sky is selected. We'll click play and see if it works. And there it is. And as you can see, we no longer have that warming in the sky, just on the foreground. So this can come in really handy. The subtract sky action can be used on all kind of different adjustments. And the cool thing about it is it doesn't need a sky channel to run. The next action will be a subtract foreground, and it won't rely on a foreground channel to run, which could save some file space. Now let's make a subtract foreground action, but what I want to do is I'm going to click on my add color to highlights action. We'll click it and we will click play. And what I want to do now is pick like blue because I want to add a little bit of blue up here in the sky. So let's find some blue that we may like. Maybe like that, maybe a little less saturated, but let's give it a little more just so you can really see it. And I'll click OK. Now let's make that subtract foreground action. We'll subtract the foreground from the add color to highlights, leaving just the blue in the sky. So let's click on our plus button to create a new action. Let's give it a name. Subtract foreground. I won't give it a color. It should come up black in the button mode, and I'll click record. And now we can start to record that action. On either the combo or CX panel, double click on the sky button. That will select out the foreground. And now click on your layer mask calculator button. Click on active selection. Click subtract. Now we still have a selection. Let's deselect it. So let's click on this button right here to deselect our selection. And now we can click stop. Our action is made. Let me go ahead and collapse this subtract foreground action. Now if we look at this layer mask, we can see that the foreground is subtracted. We only have that blue in the sky, so let me shut this layer off. Here's before, and now here is after. That nice little bit of blue up there in the sky. And now let's test out the action. So what I'm going to do on this add color to highlights layer, I'm going to click this button on my combo panel. That gets rid of the layer mask, and I'll click it again, and that puts a white layer mask on the layer, revealing the blue color to highlights over the entire image, but I only want it in the sky. So let's come to our subtract foreground action. I'll click on it, click play. And just like that, we subtracted out the foreground. Here's the before, and now here is the after. So a nice little bit of blue in the sky. And don't forget, you can always come and pull back on the opacity if it's too strong, or you could double click on this icon. The color picker comes up and change the color. I'm just going to click cancel. So that's pretty cool. I have one more action to make, and this is going to be a good one too. This action will be an action for adding detail into the foreground, which is very useful in landscape images. We'll come back to Photoshop Actions, click the plus, the new action dialog comes up, and I'll type in increase foreground detail. This time I'll give it a color. Let's give it the color red. I don't know why, I'm just giving it red. We can always change these colors later if we need to. And we'll click record. And now we're going to start the increase foreground detail action. For this action, we're going to use a TK action. I'll click TK on my CX panel. That opens up the TK actions. And I want to use a clarity action. So I'll click on clarity. The high pass filter comes up, and I'm going to just use the default setting of 10 pixels and click OK. We can always change this later because the high pass filter becomes a smart filter when you invoke it from the TK clarity action. And now I'll click OK. Now we just want to add this to the foreground, so what we'll do is come to the combo or CX panel, whichever one you like to use, double click the sky button. This will select the foreground, as we can see by this selection indicator and the marching ants. And now for the next step, click on the layer mask calculator, click active selection, and click the apply button. Let's rename this clarity layer to increase foreground detail. So double click on the name clarity, type in increase foreground detail, and then type your enter or return key. Now we're still in record mode, so let's add an opacity change. And what I want to do here is default this at like 50%. So we'll move this over to 50%, and now we can click stop. And so now let me shut this layer off. Here's before and here's after. Now remember, this is a smart filter, this high pass filter. You could double click it and go ahead and change this to a different radius to change the way the detail looks, and click OK. And of course, you can always come and change this opacity if needed, make it less or more. But for now, let's go ahead and delete this layer. I'll just click on the trash can because it's highlighted. It'll go away. Now let's test out our action. Now, by the way, you don't want to have this layer highlighted and click play because the action won't work. You need to click on increase foreground detail, the name of the action, and if you want to, and I always like to do this, is collapse this. So I'll just click the down arrow, and now all we need to do to run this action is click play. And we're greeted with the high pass filter dialog because here, this is programmed into the clarity action where you could come and adjust this, and I think I'll go ahead and increase the radius. So let's go around 30 so we can really see this and click OK. And now the action is done running. And as we can see, we have this layer mask only applying the detail to the foreground. So let me shut this layer off. Here's before and here's after. And you'll note that the opacity was set to 50% by the action we made. Now we can go ahead and increase this or decrease it, whatever you want. And you could always double click high pass and go back and change this radius amount. I'm just going to click cancel. And now we have 5 new actions added to the actions that you made last week. Add color to highlights, add color to shadows, subtract sky, subtract foreground, increase foreground detail. Now, I like to run my actions from button mode, so I'll come back to the flyout menu, click it, click on button mode. And what I like to do is take this panel and drag it right under my combo panel. See that blue line? Release it. And now if I drag the whole way down to the bottom, you can see there is my add color to highlights, to shadows, subtract sky, subtract foreground, and increase foreground detail. So it's just one button click to run these actions. Pretty cool. Well, there it is, everyone. I hope you enjoyed today's TK Friday tutorial. If you did, please give it a like and share it with your friends. If you're not yet a subscriber to my channel, please subscribe. Click that bell notification icon, click all so that you'll receive all of my notifications, and then every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll get notified about it. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. I'll see you all right here next time, but until then, happy editing.